you all for joining today and for giving me a reason to wear a collared shirt for the first time in a few months. So the 2020 Olympics were scheduled to start this week, I believe in 2 days. So hopefully this presentation fills a tiny bit of the void caused by their delay, at least for the nerdiest of us fans. This is all part of a much broader study of the fan experience and positive intergroup contact at the Rio 2016 Olympics. But today I'm focusing in on national identities and physical spaces and objects at the Olympics. So for scope, I'm primarily focusing on 1 out of 18 factors and 2 to 3 out of 9 themes. And those are terms that I'll explain to you in a few minutes.
Hey, Luke, so sorry to interrupt. If you are screen sharing, we just can't see your screen at this time.
Ah, well, that's all right. You haven't missed anything yet. It's just
Wanted to be
it's just the title slide. So let's see here. I was screen sharing. Now are you seeing it?
That's perfect. Yep.
Perfect. Great. Thank you for that notice. Now we're actually getting into the real meat of things. So basically, I just wanted to provide that scope of 1 out of 18 factors and 2 to 3 out of 9 themes is what I'm talking about today in the scope of the grander study. And also, I'll be starting with some elements of the broader study to help conceptualize it and then focus in on those more specific things. So starting with why this study. So I first went to do research at the 2014 FIFA Men's World Cup in Brazil. And I wasn't looking for it, but intergroup contact theory emerged loud and clear for me. And so I followed that track. And then the next year at the FIFA Women's World Cup in Canada in 2015, I introduced elements of the theory to fans to kind of test it out. And this theory, intergroup contact theory, posits that prejudice is reduced and positive contact is possible if certain factors are present in intergroup contexts. So in contexts where different group identities are present. So shorthand would be diverse contexts. And Gordon Allport kind of originated a lot of the concepts of it in 1954 with his contact hypothesis, which has developed into the theory since then. His 4 original factors were equal status between the people present, equal status between them, common or subordinate goals that they have together, intergroup cooperation, and supportive authorities and norms. So whoever is kind of in charge of the context is supporting them having positive experiences with each other. And so Allport also made some calls that have not really been explored in the last 60 to 70 years. One is to really apply this theory into vulnerable contexts, and that means vulnerable for positive effects, vulnerable for positive change. So ideal positive contexts, not just problematic ones where this theory has really been applied more, like Northern Ireland religious conflict, or Palestine and Israel, or troublesome race relations and things like that. And he also called for qualitative participant-centered methods, which have been largely ignored in lieu of some really good quantitative research. And then also another component is the mega sporting event industry's calls to kind of to foster good, positive, diverse experiences. So this looks like, the ongoing Olympic values and legacy that they promote, and also their more recent 2014 Agenda 2020 goals. And so a few of those goals are kind of represented in some of the data that I'm about to present. So getting into it now, research question 1 was, which intergroup contact theory factors are perceived by fans at the Olympics as most relevant to their experience of positive intergroup contact? And so I had to narrow down the list that has been found over the past 6 or 7 decades empirically of these factors that are shown to reduce intergroup prejudice and foster positive experiences between people of different group identities. So I combed through the research and found 65. It's probably not completely exhaustive, but hopefully close. 65 ICT factors from previous research that are, again, are shown to have these positive effects. And I narrowed those 65 down to 26 in experiential context-specific wording for fans of the Olympics. That was overseen by some other researchers and in collaboration with them. I took these 26 factors and surveyed 37 fans from 24 countries at the Olympics in Rio during the first 5 days of the Olympics. And then the top 18 factors that those fans kind of evaluated as most relevant to their experience remained in the study. And we cut out the last 8 that they didn't see as present in their experiences. So then getting into research question 2, and quick note, I will be going over what those factors are here in a minute. And research question 2 is, what supportive relationships do fans at the Olympics perceive between intergroup contact theory factors they identified as most relevant? So this is a little more nuanced. I used interpretive structural modeling interview software, which isn't widely used, but I would love to talk about it afterward with anyone who's interested, because it's a very useful research tool. And I'll show you in a minute what it looks like. I interviewed 16 of those 37 survey participants during a 10-day stretch later in the Olympics with those 18 intergroup contact theory factors. The mean interview length was 80 minutes, and each interviewee created a visual structure of basically that represented individual profiles and descriptions. So I created a profile for each interviewee based on their interview. So this software is conducive to identifying and describing relationships among factors of interviewees' experiences and perceptions, and it inherently records structures and visually presents data and sets the stage for analysis. So this is what it looks like. The outcome of one interview, in addition to having like the audio and the transcript, the outcome of the interview looks like this. And so you can see, I'm going to start with the blue arrows that you see there. Each arrow in the structure represents an interviewee answering yes to the question that's at the top of the slide. And so I had my computer with me, and we were both sitting in front of it. I asked the questions verbally. They could also see it on the screen in front of them. And the software automatically filled each of those 2 blanks with 2 of the 18 factors for every question, somewhat based on the factors order that I used to input them, and somewhat based on interviewees' previous answers. So it's kind of, the software is dynamic. It responds to interviewees' answers. Warfield initially developed a mathematical algorithm that works in the background of the software to minimize the number of questions needed to understand contributing influential relationships among a set of factors. He used transitive logic to this, such that if A contributes to B and B contributes to C, then A contributes to C. So in this study, it appears more as if F11, one of the factors out there, if F11 contributes to F4 and F4 contributes to F15, then F11 contributes to F15, even though there may not have been a question containing both of those factors and putting them in the same text. So without this caveat of transitive logic in the software, each of my interviewees would have had to answer 306 questions to create a structure from 18 factors in order to put every factor in every blank with each other. So thus, the ISM software was invaluable, as it allowed me to investigate and include several more factors than would have been reasonable, appropriate, and considerate in the research context. So this structure is what was created. I'm going to dive in deeper in the next slide. This was created by one interviewee in their interview. And I did member checking afterward to make sure that this resonated with them. And if in the case that 1 or 2 interviewees said, I don't think this is really reflective of my experience, we went back and went back into those questions and revisited the structure that came out the second time, and they said that it resonated with their experience. So this is the composite structure that is a combination of all 16 interviewee structures. So what I did is calculate a score called the influence score. And in short, an influence score is determined by how many factors a single factor kind of travels through, how many it helps to emerge in a fan's experience. So the more influential a factor is in facilitating the other factors, the farther to the left it is, and the more of an outcome rather than an influencer that it is, the farther to the right that it is. Now, it's important to note that all 18 of these factors are shown to reduce prejudice and foster positive contact on their own. This is digging deeper into how they work together, and which ones kind of help to generate the others. So this can help organizers and federations and things like that prioritize the more influential factors in order to organically generate the factors that are farther to the right. Now we're going to dive in to focus on F11 there, factor 11, which is getting us now into the national identity that I referenced earlier. Displaying my group identity and then like clothes, flags, singing, chanting, things that kind of show people where you're from. And group identity, I didn't isolate it to national identity, but it's what interviewees discussed most often, which makes sense given the context of the Olympics. So it was the second most influential, but my take is that it is the most important factor in the larger context because it was the top initiator of the first ranked factor, which is right above it, F1, meeting and talking with others. So because it played that role of really fostering the top ranked factor in addition to being the second most influential overall, I find it to be extremely important. So many fan interviewees cited, and I witnessed in my time there, how displaying an identity overtly via clothing or singing or whatever served as a nonverbal icebreaker to start conversations with strangers. So for example, someone could see someone wearing a jersey from Colombia and saying, "You're from Colombia? I was in the stadium last night when your triple jumper won gold." And then they're talking, they're having contact about something that they both are there in that context to enjoy. Moving on to a different form of the data, the thematic analysis. So there's a lot on this slide, but I'll explain what it means. So I also did thematic analysis, and this is the results of that. So whenever an interviewee answered yes to that question that was at the top of the screen earlier, that one factor contributed to another in their experience, I asked them why or how it contributed. And this elicited many general and specific answers. So I took those kinds of those answers as rationales for why something contributed to something else. And there were 516 of them. And I took them from the transcripts, and they kind of emerged into these 9 themes that you see. And I highlighted the ones in gold that are most relevant and circled some other things that are connected. So this figure illustrates kind of the where and when that these factors emerged and supported each other in fans' experiences. So they're kind of like reoccurring categorizations, sites, contexts, experiences that the fans discussed. And so you see over there on the right that the physical spaces, which is another part of what I'm focusing on, physical spaces was a theme that emerged, and collective activity is related to that because it was about doing things with a group of people, which required, in this case, being around them. And then you see the other things circled there within other themes as well. So what this kind of can do is to help organizers identify where and when fans experience positive intergroup contact, and each factor specifically, which I'll explain in a minute. So I have, for each of the 18 factors, I analyze them for an individual profile of this where and when it is most likely to initiate other factors, and where and when it is most likely to be initiated by other factors. So this is where the importance of physical spaces comes into the discussion. It is its own theme, and it's inherently connected to some of these other things that are highlighted in gold. So, and there you can see the things, the sub-themes that are listed underneath it to help conceptualize it. So getting more specific with these thematic analysis quotes, I have from the four themes that were kind of highlighted in gold there. Here are some examples of fan interviewees quotes from the four themes that are highlighted. So the theme physical spaces, the most relevant one, had to do with physical or tangible environments and objects. And Helena, not her real name, from Denmark, her real country, said, "We met another Brazilian couple inside the Olympic Park. We were speaking with them, just getting to know them a little bit. We needed a place to sit, and there was a bench free. They were sitting on the other side of the table, and we asked them if it's okay if we sat there, and they said yes. Then we got to know them a little better." So there you can see the physical space of the Olympic Park, the physical object of the bench, of the table, things like that. And these tables, I'll comment on in a minute here, are a really interesting example of a lesson for organizers. The next one, the theme of collective activity, experiences and settings in which large groups engage in similar and or simultaneous actions. Celine, not real name, from Canada, said, "Everybody feels with the other fan, because last night, when you think about the triple long jump, the Colombian, she had the gold secured. She had already won it, essentially, and she was the last jumper. But everybody was cheering for her to beat her own longest jump. She was the best, and her last jump, we were hoping that she would do even better. We're all cheering for her, just because we were here for good sport. She was cheering the crowd, and the crowd was cheering, saying, 'Give it your best.' So there's this collective activity in this shared space that helps people feel like they're joined with other people." The next two, the theme of doing things together interpersonal. So that's contrasted from the collective activity. It's more like one-on-one or very small groups. Fans shared actions and mutual plans beyond just simply conversing with each other. Bram from the Netherlands said, "We share moments together. I met some people and then they asked to see me more times. So also having great time outside the events, like the guy I met at the swimming. I invited him to the Dutch house to spend a night there, and he even was taking me with his car to the place. I think that's not so normal." So the Dutch house, many nations at the Olympics have their own national houses as places for fans to come together outside of the event venues and just kind of hang out with each other. So that's what he's referring to there, and he invited some Brazilians to come with him. The next one, initiating communication and contact. Fans' experiences of starting conversations and coming into contact with each other. Because by showing the country you're from, that makes you see or show to others who you are. That can break the ice and help you interact with other people. For example, when I went to the bar with a Mexico shirt on, and just by having that, a lot of people were like, "You're from Mexico?" "Mexico, yeah." Then they will start talking to you. That make me meet other people. And so showing that group identity by wearing a jersey or a kit broke the ice. It initiated that contact, and it was in a shared space. All right, so bringing it all together and wrapping it all up. Identities in spaces. So this is exemplifying kind of a profile that I have for each factor, illustrated through factor 11, which is displaying my group identity. These profiles include which themes of fans' experiences, those are the sites, situations, the recurring experiences, which of those are conducive to each factor, and how does each factor function with other factors in those sites or situations. The factor 11 profile for displaying my group identity, it's a primary support factor, which means it's very influential based on its influence over other factors and helping them to emerge. And it's most supportive of other factors in the themes or the experiences of initiating communication and contact and humanity as an in-group. It is most supported in physical spaces and collective activity, meaning that's where it emerges most. And so those sites, those contexts are really conducive toward bringing up this factor that is very influential over overall fan experiences of positive intergroup contact. Now, to kind of concretize it with the final slide here, these were fans' ideas of how to, basically they offered concrete examples that they did experience for each of the 18 factors and 9 themes. And I also asked them for ideas of how each factor and theme could have been implemented or utilized better or differently. And these are some of their answers. So I'll focus in real quickly on the picnic table thing that I referenced earlier. A lot of people talked about how if the picnic tables were just a little bit bigger, then they would have felt comfortable sitting at one that already had people sitting at it. Like if there was a group of 2 or 3 people sitting at the table, then it felt like these were 6-person tables. It felt like it was kind of taken and they didn't feel comfortable asking to sit down. Now, if they had longer tables here at Olympic Park, then more people would have felt comfortable just sitting down and that would have generated more contact. You see some other ideas that they cited there, and some things for better utilizing physical spaces and objects. So you can kind of see that there are these like concrete examples of everything that if you're interested, we can get more into. But to conclude, like I said, this is a small representation of the data, but hopefully provides insight into how intergroup contact plays out and can be manifested through intentional planning of these events. Positive intergroup contact achieves goals we can all support, and sporting events provide unique spaces in which compatible group identities supersede and dissolve the boundaries of conflicting group identities. And diversity can consequently drive positive shifts in attitudes and behaviors toward others. So thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Luke. All right. We do have a question from Anastasia, so I will go ahead and let you unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Luke. I can see that you've done loads of data collection in here, and that's very interesting to see where it is going next. We discussed it already a little bit on Twitter, where you said that your intentions is to get in touch with the organizers and for them to actually use your data to make their events better, I guess, for fans. How do you think you're going to achieve that, to get in touch with those organizers and for them to utilize your data?
Right. So I am hoping to be able to test some of this to show some measurable results, which I know are often what speaks to organizers and federations and corporations and things like that. So I'm hoping to be able to kind of implement something that is measurable in those senses. I also am looking to apply for a grant through the IOC that they offer annually, that offers connections and networking opportunities within their networks. So that would be a really big that you know I'm hoping will come to fruition.
Great. I wish you all the luck to apply for the grant. I think that will have a great impact on the future events.
Yeah, thank you.